The flood came without warning. In the Okavango, water doesn't rise, it charges. One moment the channels lie calm, the next they're running hard and brown. That morning, the guides skimmed their boats through a reed-lined passage while hippos grunted in the distance. Thomas stood at the helm. He'd worked these waters for years. Ahead, a pride of lions rested on a dry mound, 6 females, 3 cubs, 1 dark-maned male. Then the swept across the plains. Wind flattened the reeds. The river swelled, swallowing sandbanks. The lions sensed it first. The mound beneath them began to shrink. The cubs cried out, the male roared, and the youngest female, thin, light-colored, nervous, leapt too soon. She landed short. The water caught her and spun her away. Thomas saw her head break the surface once, then vanish. Instinct overrode thought. He gunned the engine and turned downstream. There, someone shouted. The lion surfaced again, gasping, fighting the current. Her paws sliced the water in panic. She went under a second time. Thomas threw the throttle into neutral and dropped to his knees with the boat hook. Port side. Now. He needed another hand. The volunteer scrambled to his side. Together they heaved. The lion's front half rose dripping and thrashed, claws raking at the slick aluminum. The boat rocked. The engine coughed as water slapped the prop. Hold her chest, Thomas said, not the jaw. They found a rhythm. Lift, pause, let the water surge past. Lift again. The lion gagged and spit river. Her hind legs still hung in the current like anchors. Thomas shoved his knee under her shoulder, braced on the gunwale, and pulled. The world narrowed to weight and breath. He felt the moment the current gave up. Her hips cleared the lip. She flopped onto the deck in a violent, sodden collapse and lay there heaving, ribs sawing the air. Back out, Thomas said, voice hoarse. The second guide eased the engine into reverse. The skiff drifted clear of the worst of the flow. The lion coughed and tried to stand. She failed. Her eyes rolled to Thomas's face and fixed there. He looked away not from fear, but because he understood the line between help and challenge. He kept his head low. Across the channel the pride went wild. The male paced the lip, throwing water. The females clustered and roared. The cubs vibrated with sound. We can't keep her, the volunteer whispered. We won't, Thomas said. We're taking her to the shallows upstream. He kept his voice calm even. He spoke to the guide as much as to himself. He pointed to a bend where reeds fanned out into a flat, knee-deep bay. The current would slacken there. If they timed it, they could nose in, ground the skiff, and let her slide off. The lion struggled to her elbows. She shook once, sending water in a sheet. Thomas felt the spray on his lips. She growled low, not a threat. An animal clearing its chest. He watched her claws flex and retract in pain. Now, he said. The skiff curved through the bend, kissed the reeds, and bumped to a stop. Thomas slid back, made space. The lion gathered herself, trembling, and pushed to her feet. She was not steady. She put one paw down, then another, like a foal on ice. Then she leapt. She splashed into the shallows, stumbled, and stood. The water reached her chest. She shook again, blinked hard, and turned her head toward the mound where the pride waited. She took one step, then another, finding bottom under her pads. She moved without looking back. The pride's roar changed. The sound softened. It was relief. Thomas sat down hard, shaking. His hands wouldn't unclench from the boat hook. The volunteer laughed once in disbelief. He didn't respond. He just watched the lion climb the far bank and disappear into the grass. He didn't know it yet, but that moment would follow him for the rest of his life. Weeks passed. The floodwater receded. The story spread through camps and ranger posts. They called him reckless, lucky, a fool. Thomas said little. He didn't mention how heavy she'd been, or how her eyes had locked on his. The lions vanished back into the delta, leaving only tracks that the rain erased. Months later, on a still afternoon, Thomas found the pride again. They were lounging on the edge of a plain. The same male, the same cubs, now nearly grown. He counted the females. 6 and one more. Lighter, slimmer, a faint seam of fur across her shoulder where the snare or the hook might have left a mark. She stood when the boat appeared. Same pride. A tourist whispered. Thomas nodded, cutting the engine. Let them decide. The skiff drifted closer. The lions lifted their heads, alert but calm. The light-colored female stepped forward, tail flicking once. The others stayed behind her, watching. The air was hot, heavy with dragonflies. Thomas sat very still. She chuffed once. The sound was quiet, almost private. The cubs stirred. The male flicked his tail and settled. Thomas did not lift his camera. He did not stand. He let his hands rest open on his knees. The skiff drifted closer and then stopped as if the water itself had placed a hand on the bow. The lioness stepped into the channel, one pace too. The water reached her ankles. She bent her head and sniffed the surface where the hull had sliced the weeds. She lifted her face, blinked and chuffed again. Behind her, a younger lion, nearly full-grown now, copied the motion, uncertain, glancing at her for permission. The pride rose but did not advance. They made a space and held it with their bodies. The older females watched with a focus that wasn't tense so much as alert. They knew their sister's scent. They knew the strange calm in her muscles. Thomas breathed through his nose, slow. He felt the thump of his heart in his ears. He had taught himself long ago to ride that sound like a tide. The urge to speak came and went. He did not break the moment with a human voice. The lioness took one step closer, then stopped at a line she chose. A meter of water lay between her and the bow. The world narrowed to heat and the small sounds of living. Flies, reeds, a fish tick against a stalk. Her eyes fixed on the deck. Not on the bright shirts, not on the clicking cameras in the second skiff. On where Thomas sat. She lowered her head and made a low row, jitch sound in her throat. A tone you hear when a mother returns to a den. A sound with no human name. From the mound, the pride answered without moving. Bodies loosened. A cub yawned so wide its jaw clicked. No one in the boat spoke. The guests forgot to breathe. The lioness blinked slowly as if closing a door and opening it again. She lifted one paw and placed it back where it had been on dry land. She looked back once more at the boat. Then she turned and walked away. The pride flowed with her. The male rose and bumped her flank with his head as she passed, a gesture of possession that was not quite approval. The younger lion brushed his shoulder along hers. Two females bracketed the cubs with invisible walls. They climbed the slight rise and lay down again in a new pattern, a shifting of bodies that left the light-colored female at the edge nearest the water. She faced the skiff for a while, eyes half closed, the way a cat rests while watching something it knows it won't hunt. The second guide whispered, "Did you see that?" Thomas nodded. He did not look away. That night, back at camp, the guides replayed the footage. The chuff, the slow turn, the calm. No aggression, no fear, just a moment that felt older than language. They uploaded the clip, and by morning it had spread across the world. People called it proof of gratitude. Others called it coincidence. Thomas said nothing. He knew the Delta had seen it all before. Mercy crossing between species, then fading like ripples on dark water. A week later he took his usual route through the shallow channels. The lilies had opened again. The air was sweet with decay and bloom. On the far bank, he spotted fresh prints. Lion, adult, pressed deep beside the smaller paws of a cub. They ended at the water's edge where the mud was churned and smooth. He crouched to trace one with his hand. It was broad, solid, unmistakable. He smiled. Then he stood, climbed back into the skiff and eased into the current. The reeds whispered as he passed, parting for the hull, closing behind it. Somewhere out on the plain, a lion called. A low, rolling sound that faded into the wind. Thomas listened until it disappeared. He didn't know if it was her. But he hoped it was. Because some debts, he thought, don't ask to be repaid. They just echo. soft and endless, across the water.